The glow from Emma's phone screen was the only light in the dimly lit living room, casting soft shadows on the walls. She stared at the notification with a mix of disbelief and resignation. Another cancellation. Another excuse. Her husband, Mark, had promised a special dinner that night. Something different. Something that would remind them of the early days of their marriage, when every moment together felt precious. But once again, the message on the screen said something else. Sorry, love. Plans came up with the lads. There's a match tonight. We'll make it up another time. Emma closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The worst part wasn't the cancellation itself, nor the tired excuse. It was the certainty that another time would never come. This wasn't the first time, nor even the second. The feeling of being a shadow in her own home was growing heavier, suffocating. She rose from the sofa and walked over to the window, gazing at the headlights of cars passing by outside. The world kept turning, indifferent to the turmoil inside her. Couples strolled hand in hand, laughing, talking, sharing moments. Meanwhile, Emma sat waiting for someone who had long since stopped waiting for her. An unexpected impulse surged through her. Without overthinking, she grabbed her phone and dialed a number she never imagined she would call in this situation. She didn't know exactly what she was doing, only that she couldn't spend another night alone on the sofa, waiting for a message that would never come. Hello? The voice on the other end was deep and calm. Emma swallowed hard. She could have hung up, pretended it was a mistake, a wrong number. But instead, she took a deep breath and asked, "Would you like to go to the theater with me tonight?" Silence stretched longer than she expected. For a second, she thought she was crazy, that she had lost her mind. But then came the reply, soft laughter breaking the tension. It's been years since I went to the theater. Maybe, it's about time. Yes, it's about time, she said, trying to sound casual, though her heart was pounding. What time shall I pick you up? I'd rather pick you up, she answered quickly, not wanting questions or curious looks. He agreed without hesitation. She hung up, phone still in hand, feeling a strange mix of relief and nervous excitement. When the time came, Emma drove out to his house, nestled in a quiet suburb on the city's outskirts. As she arrived, she saw him in the garden, chopping wood. The fading light of dusk cast a soft glow around his silhouette, making the moment feel almost cinematic. His movements were sure and steady. She had never paid much attention before, but there was something in the way he worked that radiated calm and strength. He saw her and smiled broadly, setting the axe aside. "Give me 5 minutes," he said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I'll take a quick shower." Emma stepped inside his home and sat on the couch. The place smelled of wood and coffee, a scent she always associated with family visits. She glanced around and saw framed photos on the walls. Pictures of his children, photos of Mark. For a moment, she almost regretted calling him. He emerged from the bathroom, wearing a clean shirt, his hair still damp. "Ready? It's been a long time since I had a night like this." The drive to the theater felt longer than usual. The silence in the car wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't relaxing either. Every now and then, she glanced at him, trying to understand how they had come to this point. Mark couldn't spare her a single evening, but his father was willing to. Emma pushed those thoughts aside when they arrived downtown. The streets were bustling with people enjoying their Friday night. Finding a parking spot was a challenge. "This is an adventure," he joked. "Wait until you see the queue for tickets," she replied, glad for the change of subject. Inside the theater, everything felt different. He seemed out of place, like he was exploring a new world. It took them a few minutes to find their seats. "I hope you picked well," he said playfully. "Trust me." She smiled as the lights dimmed and the stage brightened. Emma felt a knot in her stomach. The play was a light comedy, one of those effortless smiles kind of shows. She tried to focus, but her mind wandered. Why had she called him? Was there really no one else to ask? At one point, their hands brushed as they both reached for the armrest. A small gesture, but it made her catch her breath. She quickly pulled her hand away. He noticed. "You all right?" He whispered. "Yes, of course," she replied, forcing a nervous smile. That he said nothing more, but from then on avoided touching the armrest. As the play went on, a shared sense of complicity grew between them, making her forget her doubts for a while. When the lights came up and the crowd began to stand, they stayed seated a few seconds longer. "That was better than I expected," he said. "Me too." He gave her a lingering look before standing and offering his hand, ready to face the traffic back. The journey home was quiet but not uncomfortable. When they got to his house, he stayed in the car a moment before stepping out. "Have you ever had the feeling that something small can change everything?" he asked, surprising her. "Depends on what it is," she answered cautiously. He nodded slowly, as if wrestling with a thought he was afraid to voice. "Sometimes, a night at the theater can mean more than we realize." Emma didn't know what to say. She pretended to focus on the road, but his words echoed in her mind the whole way back to the tea home. Mark was on the sofa, laughing on the phone, oblivious to her arrival. Emma slipped upstairs silently, a weight pressing on her chest. She lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind was trapped in the night's laughter, the trace of their hands brushing, and she knew she had crossed an invisible line, with no clear way back. Emma woke the next morning with a heaviness pressing on her chest, a persistent echo of the night before clinging to her thoughts like a shadow she couldn't shake. The soft light of dawn filtered through the curtains as she rose quietly, hoping to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. She patted down the stairs in her bare feet, the cool wooden floor a stark contrast to the warmth of her silk robe, its edges trimmed with delicate lace that whispered softly as she moved. The robe fell just above her knees, revealing slender legs that still held a trace of youthful elegance despite the years of quiet disappointment. In the kitchen, Mark was leaning against the counter, phone pressed to his ear, laughter spilling from him effortlessly. His casual charm was as effortless as ever, a neatly trimmed beard framing a strong jawline. His dark hair tousled in that way that suggested he had just rolled out of bed but looked perfectly put together. He wore a simple white t-shirt that clung to his athletic frame and faded jeans, the casual look of a man who had no idea of the storm simmering beneath Emma's calm exterior. He didn't even glance up as she passed, the disconnect between them now more apparent than ever. Emma poured herself a cup of coffee, the bitter aroma grounding her, then settled at the kitchen table. The silence between them felt like a chasm, widening with each passing moment, filled with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the quiet. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she glanced at the screen. The message was simple but heavy with meaning. Thanks for last night. Hope you have a good day. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she typed back swiftly. It was a good night. She sent the message before doubt could creep in, her pulse quickening as she waited for a reply. None came. The days that followed slipped by in a dull routine. Emma filled her hours with cleaning, grocery shopping, and busy work. Anything to keep her mind from wandering back to the fragile thread of connection she'd felt with Mark's father. Yet, every time Mark brushed past her, laughing with his friends or sharing trivial stories, she felt exposed, as if her hidden thoughts were written plainly on her face, waiting to be discovered. But Mark remained oblivious, unaware of the turmoil swirling beneath her composed exterior. Friday arrived faster than she expected. Mark was preparing to go out, his usual scent of cologne filling the air as he adjusted his shirt in the mirror, effortlessly confident. Emma watched him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you heading out tonight?" "Yeah, love. Just with the lads." For a bit, she nodded silently, watching him leave without so much as a glance at her expression. Then, on a whim she barely understood herself, Emma grabbed her phone and typed a message. "Are you free tonight?" The reply came almost instantly. "No, why?" Her pulse quickened, but there was no turning back now. "I'd like to go for a drive." Minutes later, she was behind the wheel again, the city lights blurring past as they drove with no particular destination. Eventually, they pulled into a small cafe on the outskirts of town. A cozy spot with warm lighting and a welcoming atmosphere, the kind of place that invited long conversations and quiet confessions. They settled at a table by the window, the scent of freshly brewed coffee swirling around them. Their conversation drifted effortlessly from one topic to another, skirting around any subject that might cross invisible boundaries. Yet, the unspoken tension hung thick in the air, palpable and electric. When their cups were empty, They returned to the car, the night dark except for the soft glow of the dashboard lights. Have you ever felt like everything can change in an instant? Mark's father asked suddenly. That I suppose it depends on the situation. Emma replied cautiously, trying to keep her voice steady. He nodded silently, gazing out the window as if searching for answers in the passing shadows. The drive back was calm but charged with something neither of them could or would name. His house. Mark's father lingered in the car a moment before stepping out. Thanks for tonight, he said. His smile genuine but tinged with something unspoken. Of course, Emma replied, trying to sound casual. He leaned slightly toward the window, as if about to say more, but then withdrew and went inside. Emma sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart tight with conflicting emotions. Everything felt both simple and impossibly complicated. The following morning brought the same weight to her heart. Mark sat in the kitchen, absorbed in his phone, oblivious to the storm inside Emma. She tried to busy herself, but every notification made her heart race with a strange mix of hope and dread. Finally, the message she feared arrived. Can we talk? I don't want things to stay like this. Emma sighed deeply, her chest tightening. She knew she couldn't keep avoiding the conversation, but every word exchanged felt like stepping deeper into unknown territory. She typed back firmly, not right now. We need space. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard Mark's laughter from the living room. Light, carefree, utterly detached from the tension that gripped her. And in that moment, Emma understood the real problem wasn't just the night with his father. It was the vast, silent void that had grown between her and Mark. A gulf she had denied for too long. Days passed in near silence. Mark respected her distance, not pressing for contact. But his absence only fueled her anxiety. Each vibration of her phone made her heart leap with fear. Fear it was him, or worse, fear it wasn't. Then, one Wednesday evening, as she prepared dinner, Mark appeared in the doorway, face serious. Can we talk? He asked, leaning against the frame. Her heart pounded, but she kept calm. Sure. What's on your mind? I felt you pulling away. Like something's wrong. His voice was steady but edged with something vulnerable. Emma nodded, feeling tears prick at her eyes. It's nothing. I'm just tired, she lied with a fragile smile that fooled no one. He didn't press further, but the weight between them grew heavier. That night, as Mark slept, Emma stared at the ceiling, wondering how their marriage had come to this. How the silence and distance had crept in unnoticed, until it was nearly too late. The next day, she made a decision. She dialed Mark's father's number. When he answered, his voice was calm but carried a note of relief. We need to talk. In person. He didn't hesitate. They agreed to meet that afternoon at his doorstep. He was waiting. I knew you'd come, he said quietly. Emma sighed. This can't go on. He nodded. I know. They entered the house silently, the unspoken weight between them thickening the air. They sat across from each other, the silence louder than words. I can't pretend I don't feel something for you, he admitted, voice steady but raw. But I can't ignore what this means. Emma met his gaze, her voice firmer than she expected. This has to end before anyone gets hurt more. He nodded slowly, accepting the inevitable. After a moment, she stood, ready to leave. He rose too, but just as she reached the door, he took her hand. Thank you. You reminded me I can still feel. His words were sincere, almost nostalgic. This is for the best, she said softly, though a part of her still fought to believe it. She left without looking back, driving home with a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Mark was there, sitting on the sofa, TV flickering, eyes fixed on her in a way that suggested he sensed something had changed. The days that followed were slow, weighted with the emptiness between them. Mark tried to bridge the gap with small gestures and tentative words, but the damage ran deep. Years of silence, broken promises, and unmet expectations. One evening, as Emma prepared dinner, Mark joined her in the kitchen. His expression softer than usual. I think we need to do something different, he said quietly. We've been living like strangers. I don't know when we lost each other, but I want to try to fix this. His words surprised her. For a moment, she was speechless, Then something inside her clung to the hope he offered. Me too, she whispered. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, a fragile possibility of healing flickered between them. Yet, as Emma caught a glimpse of the framed photo on the wall, the one of Mark and his father, smiling together, she couldn't shake the feeling that some secrets were still waiting to unravel, and that the night at the theater was only the beginning of a story far more complicated than she had ever imagined. A few days later, the lingering tension in Emma's home was almost tangible, like a thick fog that refused to lift. The fragile truce between her and Mark hung in the air, unspoken but understood, as if they were both walking on eggshells around a fragile peace. The routine they shared was quiet, but underneath it all, Emma felt as though a storm was quietly gathering strength. That morning, Emma dressed carefully, as if armor for the day ahead. She chose a deep emerald green dress that hugged her curves delicately, the fabric soft and flowing just above her knees. The neckline was modest but teasing, revealing a hint of collarbone that caught the light whenever she moved. On her feet were black suede ankle boots with a subtle heel that gave her a confident lift without screaming for attention. Around her wrist, a delicate silver bracelet glimmered, catching her eye whenever she gestured. Her dark hair was pulled back loosely, allowing tendrils to frame her face and soften the sharp edges of her expression. She had decided to visit the small independent theater where she and Mark's father had spent that evening, the place where everything had shifted. The theater was nestled in a quiet corner of Henley-on-Thames, a quaint town that seemed to exist halfway between the bustle of Oxford and the calm of the countryside. The building had a charming, old-world feel, its brick facade softened by climbing ivy and warm amber lights glowing from within. It was the kind of place that invited intimate stories and whispered secrets. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of worn velvet seats and polished wood. Emma's footsteps echoed softly as she made her way to the box office, where a friendly young woman greeted her with a smile. "Looking for tickets?" the woman asked cheerfully. "Actually, I'm here to see the play again," Emma replied, her voice steady. "I was at the last performance." The woman's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That's wonderful. It's a lovely show. Do you have a seat already?" Emma shook her head. "No, I thought I might just sit in and watch." The woman smiled warmly. "We always appreciate an audience like you." Emma settled into a seat near the back, the soft fabric of the chair welcoming her as she sank in. Around her, the murmurs of the audience swelled, the anticipation palpable. As the lights dimmed and the curtains drew back, Emma felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The stage came alive with actors weaving through the comedy, their voices playful and bright. But Emma's mind wasn't on the performance. Instead, she found herself thinking about the night she'd shared with Mark's father. The awkward silences, the fleeting touches, the unspoken words that hung heavy between them. She wondered if he felt the same mixture of relief and regret, of hope and fear. After the final curtain call, Emma lingered in the theater's lobby, the buzz of applause still ringing in her ears. She spotted a man standing by the coat rack, an older gentleman with silvering hair and kind eyes. Mark's father, James. He looked surprised but pleased to see her. "Back for more?" he asked with a small smile. Emma nodded. "I needed a second look." James chuckled softly. "Good choice. Sometimes you need to see things twice to truly understand them." They stood together in companionable silence, the hum of the theater around them. Emma's heart beat faster, the connection between them still fragile but undeniable. Suddenly, James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and then back at Emma, his expression darkening. "I'm sorry. I have to take this," he said, stepping a little away. Emma watched as he spoke quietly into the phone, his brows knitting together. When he finished, he returned to her side, his face troubled. "That was Mark," he said. "He wants to see me. He's found something. Something unsettling." Emma's stomach tightened. "What is it?" James shook his head. "He didn't say, but it's serious enough to bring him here tonight." The weight of his words settled over them like a shroud. Emma felt a chill creep down her spine, the earlier warmth between them replaced by a knot of foreboding. "We need to be careful," James said quietly. There are things in this family that have been buried too long. Emma swallowed hard. What kind of things? Before he could answer, the theater manager approached, reminding them that the building was closing. They exchanged a look heavy with unspoken questions and promises of answers to come as Emma stepped out into the crisp night air. The street lamps cast long shadows on the cobblestones. She wrapped her coat tighter around her, the cool breeze teasing loose strands of hair against her cheek. Her mind raced with thoughts of secrets and lies, of past mistakes threatening to unravel the fragile peace she had just begun to build. She knew one thing for certain. Whatever Mark had discovered, it was only the beginning. A storm was coming to Henley-on-Thames, and she wasn't sure if their marriage or her own heart would survive the fallout. That as she turned toward her car, the distant sound of footsteps echoed behind her. Emma glanced over her shoulder but saw nothing but the empty street, the shadows swallowing the mystery whole, and in that quiet night, beneath the amber glow of the lamps, the question hung heavy in the air. How well do we truly know the people we love? The days that followed were heavy with unspoken tension, each one passing like a slow-moving storm on the horizon. Emma found herself walking through her home like a ghost, the familiar rooms suddenly charged with an uneasy energy. Every glance at the framed photos on the walls, Mark's smiling face beside his father's, their arms slung casually around each other, felt like a silent accusation, a reminder of the secrets lurking just beneath the surface. Her emerald dress from that afternoon still hung in her closet, untouched, a symbol of the strength she had tried to summon but couldn't quite hold. Instead, she found herself reaching for softer fabrics, cashmere sweaters and loose trousers, that offered comfort without the weight of expectation. Her hair, once neatly tied back, now fell in gentle waves around her face, framing eyes that had grown tired but sharp, alert to every nuance in the silence between her and Mark. Mark, for his part, seemed to carry the same burden. His usual easy confidence was replaced by a guarded reserve. The scent of his cologne lingered less often in the air, replaced by the faint smell of freshly laundered shirts and late-night cigarettes. He avoided her gaze more frequently, his eyes darting away whenever their paths crossed. As if afraid that looking too closely would reveal the cracks in the facade, they both maintained point. One evening, as twilight bled into the sky like spilled ink, Emma stood at the window, watching the street below. The quiet hum of the town was punctuated by the occasional bark of a dog or the distant laughter of children playing. She wrapped her arms around herself, the soft fabric of her sweater a thin barrier against the chill that wasn't entirely from the falling temperature. Her phone vibrated sharply on the kitchen counter, jolting her from her thoughts. She picked it up with trembling fingers. The screen displayed a message from James. *, meet me at the Riverside Cafe. We need to talk. It's urgent. *, Emma's heart pounded. The Riverside Cafe was a modest spot by the Thames, known for its steaming mugs of tea and the way the water caught the fading light at dusk. Without hesitation, she grabbed her coat, slipped into her boots, and headed out into the night. The cafe was quiet when she arrived, a handful of patrons scattered between tables, wrapped in their own worlds. James was already there, seated near the window, his silver hair catching the glow of a nearby lamp. His expression was grave, eyes shadowed with worry. "Emma," he greeted, voice low. "Thank you for coming. What's so urgent?" she asked, sliding into the seat opposite him. James sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mark found something. Something about our family that, well, it changes everything." Emma's breath caught. "What did he find?" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Old letters, hidden documents, things that suggest there's more to our history than we ever knew. Secrets that were meant to stay buried." Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. "Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to protect you. Protect all of us. But now it's out in the open, and Mark's determined to get to the bottom of it." They sat in silence, the weight of his words settling between them like a thick fog. "You think it could tear us apart?" Emma whispered. James looked at her, eyes filled with a mixture of regret and resolve. "I don't know. But I do know that the truth has a way of demanding to be heard." As they spoke, the cafe's old clock chimed softly, marking the passage of time as if urging them forward. Emma realized that the fragile piece she'd clung to was slipping away, replaced by a force she couldn't control. When she left the cafe, the night had deepened, the Thames reflecting the stars like shards of broken glass. Emma pulled her coat tighter, the cool air biting at her skin. She couldn't shake the feeling that every step she took was drawing her closer to a truth that might shatter everything she thought she knew. Back home, the house was dark and silent. Emma paused at the doorway, the weight of the coming storm pressing down on her shoulders. Somewhere inside, a question gnawed at her. How far was she willing to go to uncover the past? And what would she lose along the way? As she turned to close the door, a faint noise caught her attention. A soft creak, the whisper of footsteps retreating into the shadows. She froze, heart pounding, but when she looked, the hallway was empty. Outside, the night held its secrets close, and Emma knew that whatever awaited her, the coming days would change everything. And somewhere, deep within the darkness, a pair of eyes watched silently, waiting for the moment to step into the light. The following morning dawned gray and heavy, as if the sky itself carried the weight of the secrets Emma now faced. She stirred from restless sleep, the tangled sheets clinging to her legs like reminders of the tangled web she was caught in. Her fingers instinctively reached for the silver bracelet she always wore. A thin, delicate band that felt like a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. Emma dressed with care, selecting a soft cream blouse that contrasted gently with the charcoal pencil skirt hugging her hips. The blouse was slightly sheer, the fabric whispering against her skin, hinting at the curves beneath without revealing too much. She slipped into black leather pumps, the kind that clicked authoritatively on hardwood floors but still allowed her to move with quiet grace. Around her neck, a simple locket hung on a thin chain, a keepsake from her mother that she hadn't worn in years. But today, it felt necessary. She stepped outside into the chilly morning air of Henley-on-Thames. The town was waking slowly, the cobblestone streets glistening from an overnight drizzle. Shopkeepers arranged displays, and the scent of freshly baked bread drifted from the corner bakery. It was a picture of calm normalcy that belied the storm looming over Emma's life. Her destination was the local library, a stately brick building with tall windows and ivy crawling up its walls. Emma had decided she needed answers, facts, dates, names, to make sense of James's warnings and Mark's discoveries. The library was a place of quiet refuge, where the past was catalogued and preserved, waiting patiently to be uncovered. Inside, the scent of aged paper and polished wood surrounded her as she approached the reference desk. The librarian, a kindly woman with silver hair and glasses perched on the tip of her nose, greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Emma. Back for more research?" Emma offered a small smile. "Yes, I'm trying to find some old records. Family histories, perhaps." The librarian nodded knowingly. "Well, you're in the right place. What names are you looking for?" "Mark Harrison and James Harrison," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. Guided by the librarian, Emma was led to a quiet corner where archives were kept in large, dusty volumes. She pulled out a thick leather-bound book titled Henley Family Records, 1900–1950. The pages were yellowed and fragile, each one a snapshot of lives long past. Hours slipped away as Emma pored over the documents. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, newspaper clippings. She found references to ancestors she'd never heard of, and hints of scandals carefully erased from family memory. There were mentions of disputed wills, whispered accusations, and a tragedy that had been buried under layers of silence. Her fingers trembled as she turned a page and found a faded letter addressed to a Margaret, signed only with a cryptic initial. The words were desperate, pleading for forgiveness and secrecy. Emma's mind raced. Who was Margaret? And what had been so terrible that it needed to be hidden? A sudden noise startled her, a quiet cough from behind. Emma looked up to see the librarian watching her with gentle concern. "Are you all right?" the woman asked softly. Emma nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, just overwhelmed." The librarian smiled kindly. "History has a way of doing that. But sometimes, knowing the truth is the first step to healing." Emma closed the book carefully, determination hardening in her eyes. She had come seeking answers, And now she was more certain than ever that uncovering the past was the only way forward as she left the library. The sky had cleared, sunlight breaking through the clouds in golden beams that danced on the Thames. Emma paused on the bridge, watching the water flow endlessly beneath her. The river seemed to carry away the secrets of the past, but she knew some things refused to be washed clean. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message from Mark. *, we need to talk. Tonight. At home. *, Emma's breath caught. The calm was over. The reckoning had begun as she looked out over the river. A chill ran down her spine, not from the cold, but from the knowledge that the fragile threads holding her life together were unraveling fast, and somewhere in the distance, a clock tower struck the hour, its echo a solemn reminder. Time was running out.